lift you up. Hello and welcome to the Old Farm Bus Back of the Bus Sessions podcast. Today, I know I always say I'm buzzing, but I'm like proper buzzing because I've got me, not just a mate, my best mate. You are up there, I think, in my top three, and you're always battling 1, 2 and 3.
It's at least you're top 3, not like top. Oh, you're in my top. You're in top 20. Like.
No, honestly, mate, I love you to bits. So welcome aboard, Daniel James from the Prime Life Project.
There we go.
Boom.
Yep.
Who I've been working for how long?
Oh, it's got to be nearly 2 years now. I think,
Wow.
Was it 2 years? It must be somewhere around there.
Dude.
It's been a lot of episodes. I think we're on episode maybe 75 of the podcast when you came on board, and now we're on 200 and something. So
Do I look much different to them?
no, you got more quirky. That's why I've just got the tattoo. That's I was saying last time I was on your podcast. I don't think I had that tattoo.
You had tattoos though, didn't you?
Had that the terrible one they don't talk about. But the sleeves are a new addition since I was last on yours.
How old were you when you got that one done?
Oh, 15.
15?
15, yeah. 15 or 16.
Did you have to lie then?
Yeah, my mum came in with me, so I basically
hilarious.
convinced my mum that the legal age was like 15 or 16. I can't remember what it was, but if your parent was with you. So basically she walked in, and I literally couldn't get away. I couldn't believe I was getting away with it.
Mate,
So I literally was on the wall, and the guy's like, "Oh, how can I help you?" I was like, "Oh, my tattoo." He's like, "Oh, which one?" I kind of looked at the wall, and I was like, "That one."
Mate,
So basically the tribal.
her poor
thing.
innocence and naivety to that situation.
And I remember, I'm sure
it.
England were playing football, and I can't remember who they were playing, but I sat there with arm in a cling film. My dad walked in, looked at it, and went, "I know that's not a real tattoo." And I went, "No, I'm just sat here with cling film and a fake one." And that was it.
Was he bothered?
He was initially,
Mate.
but yeah, it is what it is.
You should have seen my mum when I got Gil's name on my chest. That's the first ever.
World one of tattoos. No names.
Leigh, and it was like, you can't even do much with Leigh, other than slay or something.
Yeah.
I could get like a drunken Santa underneath.
There you go.
it.
There you go. That's the next one that's coming. But no, like for me, it's like I said, I don't like it. I'm not bothered by it now. It did bother me for a while that I had it. I was going to get laser removed actually and get another sleeve, but again, can't be bothered with it. It's fine.
Well,
History.
mate, these podcasts that I'd like to start doing with you every so often, maybe at least once every 4 months, 5, if you'd be up for it.
Yeah.
I've got a game.
Yeah.
It's called Sussed. We're going to chat about you first, though, a little bit and introduce it. But I just wanted to say, because do you know when we got the bus smashed in recently?
Yep.
Sussed, who I'd been using, I just discovered him at an Airbnb, and me and Chris were playing it. We're like, this is wild. It really took us to levels of conversation we'd not actually been before. And this particular deck, it's emotional intelligence.
Yep,
So
awesome.
I picked that because
We'll
we're
go there.
pretty switched on, man.
There, yeah.
But also, when we got the bus smashed in, they donated us £100.
Oh wow.
That's amazing. So, Sussed, thank you so much. And we're going to try and do these once every 3 or 4 months. I'm going to do an episode with you guys because I'm just really appreciative.
So don't want to get your guests to get bored of me.
Yeah.
What's about? I know you've had a few guests on recently. So actually, if I'm coming on regularly, I might be your number one, like most.
You're going to be,
guest.
mate. 100.
That's the title I'm going for.
How many so far?
This
3?
is my third.
Third, yeah. You're up there again, probably in number 3 or 4 spot.
I'm going for the number 1, so I'll come every 2 weeks.
And then you're going to be my
And then
best
retire,
mate.
then I'll
and my best
retire.
mate. You're already my best mate. But also for you, man, I can't remember the last one we did, but I don't think you were going into schools at that point when we did the episode. And now you are going into education quite a lot, right?
Yeah.
You've been booked for like a residency spot somewhere, which is incredible.
Yeah, essentially that's I can't remember the exact name. It's SEMH, so social, emotional, mental health. So basically kids that it's not quite special needs. It's not PRU. It's kind of somewhere in the middle. So I've got like a thing there where I go in once every Friday and basically work with a set group of kids.
What sort of sent you down more the education path? Was it through any of the podcasts that you'd done? Was it through any lived experience that you'd had where you thought, you know what, I feel I'd be not better off down here, but I'd really like to see what it's like in schools and education?
So it's completely out of the blue. So one of my clients I'd worked with for a while. So I worked with her and her sister. So again, they're slightly older than me. I think they're in late 30s, early 40s. Amazing pair, like amazing sisters. They're absolutely incredible. And I basically really helped them. It was on originally a fat loss course that I'd done. So it's called Lean Queens. It's basically a 12-week course. But the way that I work with fat loss anyway is working on the mindset stuff. And these two in particular really got a lot out of the mindset. So again, this course had finished, I don't know, maybe like a year ago. Oh, sorry, a year since. And she then messaged me out of the blue and said, listen, how do you fancy you going to talking in school? She says, we've got a school that I work with. They've been let down last minute. I know the headmaster or deputy head. They've been let down last minute. Can you go and talk in school tomorrow? bear in mind, I'd never done any public speaking before. I'd never really wanted too many public speaking. I'm that kid at school, so I still go back, and I can remember being in English class presenting and just being a nervous wreck, my mouth going dry. Like, it's almost like a horror story. When I put myself back there, I can literally relive it. I can't actually now believe that I actively go out and love it. I genuinely love it. So the difference is phenomenal. So I thought, yeah, okay, cool, whatever. So I went and did it. And it was kids that were meant to go on work experience, but these were the kids that got left behind, basically didn't have anywhere to go. And I basically went there and shared my story. So I sort of shared my story, and I thought, right, what would benefit these kids that I can offer? So I basically did the 5 things I wish I knew sooner about mental health. So I just went in there and covered things about controlling your thoughts, social media, having some sort of purpose and direction in your life. All the stuff that I teach my clients. I basically went there and did this workshop. And the deputy head was in there, and apparently was really, really impressed, and basically then said to this lady, can we book him in next year? She then actually works for a company that gets people in schools. So she said, well, this guy likes you, let's just actually have a bit of a partnership. Let's see if other schools are interested in this. And that's kind of where it evolved and developed. So I think you then came in the second time. So it was that one we went to in Castle Donington.
Yes.
So that was the school I originally went to. So that was the second time I went back. And then from there, it's just grown and evolved.
And I'll just jump in as well. If people want to hear that story more in depth, you've done loads of episodes on it anyway with Educating Idiots. You've done it on your own podcast, and you've done it on this podcast. So I'll pop all of them up that you can listen to that story, because I'm sure you told it in very different ways on each of the podcasts.
I have, yeah. We've done my story to death, so I don't want to go back about my story, but that's it. I don't think we spoke about me going to schools. So yeah, it's literally evolved from there, and then obviously from there, I've then got into. Remember the one did at Audi?
Mate, go on.
So a lady messaged me on Instagram and basically said, "Oh, do you want to come and do a workshop for Mental Health Awareness Week at Audi?" I said, "Yeah, absolutely, I'll come down, like, no problem." So I'll get to the punchline in a second, but got Mikey involved, said, right, you've got to dress really smart, because obviously, as we know, it's Mikey's podcast, we know sometimes he can be out there with his clothing. Went, Mikey, it's for the directors of Audi in London, like, we've got to dress smart. So he did, he rocks up dressing smart, absolutely amazing. So we go down there, there's like 15 people in the room, wasn't there? So I absolutely nailed this presentation. Now, this was back in the day when I swore a lot. Like, I've grown up swearing, I always swear, I've got no problem with that. And for me, my delivery was very raw. And at the end of it, all 15, I think maybe 14 or 13 of those people queued up afterwards to speak to me on a one-to-one. So these are high-end executive people at their flagship store in West London, and they were really, really struggling mentally. So that's the kind of impact that I had. And then Mikey got on the lift afterwards with me, and he went, mate, you nailed that. How many of these have you done? And I was like, oh, this is my first one. Now, this is, again, my naivety and my ego to an extent as well, because that was recorded by Mikey while Mikey was there, and then it was meant to go out to all the Audi dealerships within the UK. But when HR saw it, they basically said that I swore too much and they wouldn't do it. And I kind of hit the roof. My stance was, you say you care about mental health, this is the impact it had, why would you not do this? So I was furious. I got paid for it anyway, and I kind of just left it. But I went back recently to rewatch that workshop to try and get some stuff for social media, and I'm very, very embarrassed and ashamed of how I presented myself, because I was it was raw, and again it did the desired impact, but now I know what I know and the actual impact that I want to have. I didn't need to be how I was, if that makes sense. But you don't know what you don't know. But
and I like that saying. And I also like the saying, if you watch something back that you did a year ago and you're not slightly embarrassed or slightly cringing, then you're not growing.
Yeah,
so,
I was genuinely embarrassed. Embarrassed with that for my soul.
You've grown a lot.
And that's my thing. And I saw it as a compliment that I've grown, but I then thought, could have handled the situation better. So it was a learning curve for me, also how I conducted myself, not in that workshop, but then with the lady from HR, because my whole thing was, I thought I knew best, like, this can help people with mental health, blah, 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 not realising that the message, which is why I now don't swear. So I don't swear on my podcast at all. I don't swear in my social media, any of my content, because I want to have that bigger impact, and I don't want my swearing to be almost like a glass ceiling for people where they just hear the swearing and then disregard all the actual content. And especially when going to schools and stuff, I want the kids to be able to listen to the podcast and get information from it. And I don't want the parents to hear it and have swear words in, and automatically it just gets disregarded. Because I've got information I know can help people. So I basically then had to adapt and overcome it to be like, and that's why I always watch myself back. Even the podcast, I always listen back to myself on podcasts.
Yeah, same.
When I public speak, I try and record myself, even if it's just auditory. So I can just assess and be like, how can I get better? How can I improve this? What was my delivery? Exactly.
Thinking,
So I've done it before where I'll watch myself and I'll turn the volume down so I can see, well, how are my mannerisms? So you came to one before where you said, oh, you move too much. I then watch back, because again, I value your feedback. You said you move around the stage too much. And I watched it back and I didn't agree because I
yeah.
thought, but again, I appreciate your feedback and I listened to it.
Yeah.
And I was like, right, let me just actually look. And I thought, no, I like that because
That's my energy and how I want to be.
Exactly.
For me.
That's my energy. I can't just stand there.
Yeah.
I don't really think it brings much. However, when I go to corporate companies, I don't bring that same kind of movement because it's not needed. Does that make sense?
It's great that you know yourself, and it's great that you all listen to people, but the people that you respect and you
100%.
regard, and maybe the people that aren't getting on stages or aren't doing anything like that, you'd be a little bit more skeptical
Because
to listen to those.
you've got more experience on stage than me.
Yeah.
So let's say you've done it when it comes
And it
to
was
poetry.
some advice I had once, and I did agree because it wasn't conscious movement.
Yeah.
It was unconscious, and I was just everywhere because of that. But I think watching you now, and when I've seen you recent and do your stuff, it feels very aware. It feels like I'm going to go over here, or I'm going to do that, and I'm going to move with it because that's how I'm feeling right now.
Yeah, but and I think it was you gave me the awareness of that. So before, I don't necessarily think I was doing it consciously.
Okay.
I think I was just moving around, and it was not necessarily nervous energy because you couldn't tell I was nervous,
Yeah.
but that's just how I was moving around. And then when I watched it back, and you basically made me aware of it, I was like, I wasn't doing that consciously. However, I am now going to do it consciously, which then means it's more deliberate.
Okay.
So if you look, I'm not moving around as much,
Yeah.
but when I am, it's more deliberate and it's more intentional,
People
if that makes
can hook
sense.
onto that.
Exactly. So again, it's just when someone's had experience you have, again, from your music, from your poetry, public speaking yourself, if you're going to give me some feedback on it, I'd be stupid to be like, well, F off, Mikey, like, this is my thing. Like, but it's like, no, you've had more experience. I'm going to take your feedback on board. Doesn't mean I have to agree. But then when you gave it to me, I was like, I don't agree. However, I can see what he's saying. I was like, do I like this? Is this adding to what I'm saying? Because to your point, if you're constantly moving around on stage, you're taken away from what you're actually saying. But for me, it's like, no, because if I'm moving around, the kid's got to keep making eye contact with me.
Yeah.
So actually actively engaging with their eyes, which then helps add to it. So that's how I sort of see it.
Kind of like a hypnosis as well, isn't it?
Yes.
A little bit.
And that's why I've looked at why I have such an impact. Because again, that company that got me into the schools, I've then had to go and talk to their head company and their head organisation about the impact I'm having. Because the feedback I'm having from the kids is so powerful.
Mate, I've seen it.
They can't believe it.
I've seen them all coming and queuing up to speak to you.
And so the same on Instagram, they can't believe it. So like, how are we having?
Selfies.
Yeah, they're like, how are we having such an impact?
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, I think that's part of it. Is the fact that,
mate, it's funny you said that because I was kind of gonna just ask that question in some way. It's a lot to unpack and decipher, but what is that thing? Is it the rawness? Is it the story? I've seen you do the Buddha wheel. You've got so many great slides on there. But what is it that when I came to Audi, when I've been to schools with you, afterwards they just feel so compelled and they want to speak to you. Can you just try and tell the audience a little bit about what are they going to get? What are they going to see?
So the reason, I think the question you're asking me is how do I make the impact? Is that
Why is it so piercing to people? Why are they so compelled?
I think there's a number of reasons. I think the first one is how I look.
Yeah.
Like, I'm a big bloke, tattoos, I look a certain way.
Quite handsome, mate.
I wasn't going down that route. But people aren't expecting me to rock up on stage and talk about mental health.
Yeah, I get
And
it.
I start every single presentation with my story because it's very important to me that I'm not coming across as preachy. I'm not going on stage and saying, here's what information is going to help you. Because they're like, well, who the hell's this guy? So I always start the presentations with sharing my story. And I literally show the dark days as pictures of me at my lowest. So people straight away can see, this guy gets it. But then it's also how I pre-frame the whole conversation. So when I'm with the kids at school, I'm saying, I'm here to save you 15 years of your life. So straight off, it's a bold statement. So a lot of the kids are like, yeah, as if, what's this guy on about? And then I start sharing my story a bit. And then they're like, oh. I then also say that mental health doesn't discriminate. It doesn't care how old you are, your sex, your gender, your religion. It doesn't care. Like, it can hit you at any time. So when you say that in a room full of executives, they know. Because me and you know that statistically, if there's 15 people in that room, probably about half of them are struggling, or know people that are struggling. So statistically, actually, probably 3/4 of people in that room either know someone directly or indirectly that are struggling. They're impacted. So I'm just saying, listen, you may not need this now, but isn't it good to have this information?
Yeah.
I then show, listen, I'm not perfect. And that's literally the last slides I say before I actually then start presenting. I'm not perfect. I still have bad days. The difference is I know myself and I'm in control. And fundamentally, I think that's what people want. They want to be in control and they want to start to rebuild that connection with themselves. And that's where they're a little bit lost. So straight away, I just kind of break the walls down. So they feel this is a safe space. This guy gets me. He understands. And on top of that, I genuinely care. There's that old saying, people don't care what you know until they know how much you care.
Yeah.
So when I go in, I genuinely care.
Yeah.
The passion I have, even now I'm talking about it, people listening to this, I'm passionate about it.
Love
and that comes
word,
across.
Yeah,
I care.
100%.
I genuinely care. Like, I would do this stuff for free. That's how much I care. Like this podcast,
Yeah.
I'm not been paid to do it. My podcast costs me money because I've got to hire you. But I do it because I genuinely care about helping people. And when you come there with that authenticity of, this isn't about me, this is about you, I just happen to have some information that may help, people can pick that up. People can pick up if you're being selfish and you're coming for your own selfish, egotistical purposes. Oh, that guy just loves to talk about himself. He loves his own voice. Versus, wow, this person's just come in, been really raw, authentic and vulnerable and genuinely wants to help. People can pick up on that energy, especially kids. Kids can pick up on energy. They can sense your BS. So if you're going in there with an ulterior motive, especially when I go and working with the 15 to 20 worst students of that school, they're the hardest to reach kids. If I'm going in there and BSing them, I'm not going to have the impact. Yeah, they're the ones I have the most impact with because they can see that I genuinely do care. Because I'm actually telling them the truth. I'm being raw, real, honest. And I start the conversation with that. Normally I do the whole assemblies, whole year assemblies, and then I work with the smaller group. But in that smaller group, I say, right, you've just heard me say this about my story. Any questions? Ask me anything and I'll answer it. And straight away, they ask me any questions, ridiculous questions, and I answer it honestly. So it's like they know straight away, cool. I've got nothing to hide.
Yeah.
And it's normally, how much money do I earn? What car do I drive? How many houses do I have? All this stuff. And I'll tell them.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to money, because I've got so many things around money. I then break it down. You're asking the wrong questions. How much money I earn is irrelevant. What you should be asking is how much money do I keep?
Yeah, yeah.
And then it's teaching about money because they think that if you're earning a certain amount of money, you're rich. And I'm like, I put £1 million on the board. I say, if I earn £1 million, which I don't yet.
Nice.
If I earn £1 million, but my outgoings are 999,099p, I've earned one penny. Actually, if I earn 10 grand and my outgoings are 1,000, I've actually now earned 9 grand. So actually, I'm richer than the person that's earned $1 million. So like, you're asking no one questions.
Yeah.
And then straight away they can say, oh, wow. And then it breaks that barrier down, which then means I can then talk to them on a deeper level, which then means I get that more of an impact from
Just
them.
spinning their thinking back at them, isn't it?
Working with the belief systems, especially with the kids, the 15, 20 kids that are struggling.
Collapsing most of the belief
because they're struggling, they hate school. There's that resentment. And I make it very clear, I'm not a teacher. Because straight away they can see the way that I dress when I go in schools as well. I wear my Air Force Ones. I normally wear a hoodie and a t-shirt, jeans.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to be a teacher. I'm trying to just be like, listen, I'm just a normal person. I'm trying to help you.
Well, what's your opinion on this modern world? Where are kids most disillusioned now? Where does it come from? In social media, it's being all thrown in their face, comparison. Where are the kids that you're dealing with struggling with the most with their mental health? Is that very loaded question again?
It's a very loaded question. It's completely dependent. Normally, the people I work with tend to be males, the boys. Not always. And I think a lot of them, again, not all the time, they're from single-parent households, which isn't a problem. But they've got such a problem with respect for women, which are mainly the teachers, not all of them. And they lack a strong male role model, number one. They then see stuff on social media about Andrew Tate. That's a different conversation.
Yeah.
And again, I've got nothing wrong with Andrew Tate. I've looked into some of his stuff, because again, I never heard of him until I got into schools. So I'd actually gone and looked at some of his stuff. And for me, what's told about him versus the truth, very different.
I'm with you.
But again, it's looking at the core essence of what's been sold to them, and they all think that they can now be YouTube influencers. And as me and you know, both on YouTube, Spotify, it's hard to actually break into that industry. And they think they're just going to become overnight YouTube celebrities. They all want to be influencers, and that's not how it works. So they've got really unrealistic expectations, number one. They've got really low self-esteem because they're comparing themselves to everyone else. Because remember when you were in school, you only had to really try and impress the girls in your school. The other girls in the world didn't exist. Now, everyone on social media can see you. So now you're not trying to impress the girls in your school, you're trying to impress all the other girls in the whole world, essentially. So you're now constantly comparing yourself. And if you don't feel good enough, that's going to then, you've got to then try and stand out from the crowd. So your behaviour is going to come away. And it's also lack of emotional awareness, which is funny we talk about that with the sus. A lot of the guys, they really struggle with emotions. They're not feeling okay within themselves. And it goes for women as well. And they just get angry. They don't know how they're feeling, so they just lash out. And it's just actually understanding of like, right, you say you want to have these big dreams and goals in 10, 15 years. Is how you're acting right now going to get you where you want to go? And 9 times out of 10, it's not. And it's just getting them to realise that.
So they do have ambition, though, you find in a lot of schools
100%.
that you go to. They are ambitious about making something out of themselves,
and
accumulating materials.
Yeah, it's all about the money, which we're saying with one thing money. And I'll basically say to them,
got drive.
Exactly, but they're disillusioned with what's going to take. And imagine if you think that you're in school and you think you're better than everyone else, you think you're the coolest kid in school, not realising there's a big bad world out there and there's another 100, 300, 400 kids that are exactly the same as you in other schools around the UK and the world that think the same thing as you. And you think you're that special one. Now, it's not saying they're not, but the problem is they think that it's just going to come to them and they don't have to try. And this is different. What I say to them, you have to be in school. You have to be. So why not use school to your advantage? Why not actually build connections with people around you? Why not actually hone your skills? Because actually, if you can go into a lesson you don't like and still pay attention and try your hardest, guess what? Those skills then cross over to things that you actually do want to do because you already understand how to do it. And I say to them, like, who here wants to run their own business? Some put their hands up. Okay. Who wants to work in a business? Okay. I say, either one of them involves you. So you're either going to work for someone or have people working for you. And it's like, but look at your personal standards. Like, your uniform's messy, you're this, you're that. It's like, would you want people that are working for you to dress like that? And they're like, no. It's okay, so why are you holding yourself to that standard? And again, if you're going to work for someone else, do you think that you're going to work like that and come and work for me? Dress like that and work for me? No, you're going to get fired. So it's like, school's teaching you basic principles for life. They just can't understand it. They can't understand why they've got to follow certain rules. And it's because in life, you have to follow rules.
And if you really feel uncomfortable about having to abide by authority or by their standards, then that's something you're learning about yourself. You might want to be self-employed. I mean, I do get to dress like this every day, but that is because I vehemently couldn't be controlled. I couldn't be confined to this is what it is. So I made that conscious decision for myself is, okay, I'll make my own methods. I'll make my own rules and try and follow that too.
But then let's say that you had to go and put a bid in for something. And you knew you had to go and present in front of loads of people, and that's possible. Are you going to wear that?
Not this.
You dress smart.
But again, context key. It depends who you're meeting as well.
Exactly, but let's say it's like people you've never met before, and they're going to give you £50,000. You're going to go there and present yourself a certain way, hold 100%. Yourself to that high standard. So again, I said you can wear what you want now, and I said I love your style. Like I said, I always say I feel like I rip your style. I don't. I wish I could rock it. Wish I could. But, you know, it's
mate,
limiting belief.
Get this hat on.
but it's looking at it and being like, these kids don't seem to understand. It's like you've got to hold yourself to a high standard, because if you're rocking up asking for money off someone and you don't hold yourself to a high standard and you clearly don't care that much about yourself or your appearance, why is anyone going to either offer you a job or give you their money? Because like they want to see that you kind of care, that actually you can rise yourself to that occasion. And again, like you said, some of these kids say they've got to run their own business. They may want people to wear what they want. Okay, but there's still rules they've got to follow. The people that work for them are going to have to follow certain rules. There's people here that work with the amazing kids. They've got to follow certain rules. If they don't, they can't work with the kids. It's not safe. So it's understanding, like, you as a leader have to then set those rules in place. These kids, if they're going to be leaders, entrepreneurs, they're going to have people around them. They've got to be able to follow certain rules and then actually do that. So how do you do that? You abide by the rules yourself first. You can't be a good leader until you're a good follower. So you've got to learn to follow the rules first. Understand what you like, what you don't like, why you like it, why you don't like it.
Grow your self-awareness.
Exactly, and then we go from there. And they get it.
There's consequence in society too, and you have to understand those limitations and work around those parameters. You know, I'm fully with you. What did you just say then as well? It was you can't be a good leader until you've been a good follower.
Yeah,
I like
so,
that.
But you can't. You've got to see what I think about it. You can't lead people unless you know how to follow.
Yeah.
Because in order to follow, you've got to understand that, right, someone says something, I've got to do it. So if you can't be a good follower and you're always like, oh, well, F this guy, F that guy, I'm going to do what I want to do, then how can you then possibly lead someone?
No, you're absolutely right, man. Yeah,
because you've got to understand the certain rules and parameters and what it feels like to actually be a follower. Because then you're like,
And if you're going to get into the world of asking people what to do, you need to know how that feels. And if you're going to get them to do really meaningless, trivial tasks, imagine when somebody's put you in that position. So then you start to think, as a leader, how am I going to make them feel good about this task that I'm going to present to them?
And it's also leading by example.
Learning about them, It's like
you can't get someone, you say, oh, you're going to...
I've never had a chat about leadership on here.
You're going to order people around. It's like, that's great, but if you're not doing it yourself... no one's going to want to follow you. Just think about it. And this is also where kids have a problem because, and this is the big thing they have in schools, teachers can do one thing, students got to do something else. For example, teachers can wear coats inside in most schools, students can't. And that's always a massive contention whenever I'm working with these kids. It's not fair they get to do this. So in their head, someone is telling them to do something that they're not doing themselves. And that's where the conflict comes. So imagine within a business, I'm saying to you, right, Mikey, you're going to come work on the podcast and you're going to do this and that. I'm just sat there doing nothing, not even trying, just not doing anything. Like, not doing anything. I'm just like, yeah, you can do this. It's like, I could do it, but I'm just making you do it for no reason. And you're like, well, mate, like what? Like, what are you doing? I'm just doing nothing. It's like, you're going to be like, what? But actually, you know that I graft and I do all this stuff, and it's then a community of effort. You know that I pull my weight, so it then works. Where these kids, they see, well, the teachers tell them what to do, and they're not doing it themselves. But then this way, you then talk to kids, and you explain, the teacher's got their own set of rules. Like, the kids have got the rules, the teacher's got rules. It just so happens that the teachers can wear coats inside, the kids can't. but the teachers also can't do this, and this. And actually the teacher's got more rules they can't do than the students.
Yeah.
But the students don't know that. But then once you explain that, they're like, oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
No, you didn't know that. So now you know, it then kind of calms it down a bit. Does that make sense? Am I making sense with this?
Completely making sense, yeah.
You can't expect people to do stuff you're not willing to do yourself.
Yeah. I mean, I suppose there's such a box of snakes talking about school and education, isn't it? Because there's also a lack of trust in just the fact that the system's so outdated now, and the kids have the access to all knowledge, or some knowledge of humanity, and they're like, you can't use that though, and you go, well, what's that all about? Like, why can't I just access that answer now and stuff? So I think that it needs to just be a harmony together, and these are the great conversations that could bring that, because in terms of uniform, I've always been really misunderstood to why it's in that way, and I've really enjoyed what you've just put across to me there, and I've been thinking constantly for the last 10 minutes then of, that's a really good point though. Actually, I just felt it was so coercive, you couldn't be an individual, but what it's prepping them up for, there's a lot in that to unpack.
And then also where you take it a step further,
I'm with you.
If kids come out what they want, it then shows you the people that are poor.
I know what you're saying.
And that's
I've
when
heard that before
so I said that's not for me. That is a part of it, but for me, it's what I said. But it's then also looking at it, because it's looking if you've got someone who's really on the poverty line, they can't afford a decent pair of shoes, and someone's rocking up all the time these brand new shoes, you're going to feel even more less than.
And also, it does take it from their learning a little bit, because then they're thinking every day of what they're going to wear.
Yep.
Am I being judged?
Yep.
Is this the right? And then it's adding a complete new thing into the mix, so that they don't necessarily.
So for me, it's just preparing them for the real world, and actually understanding that you've got to know how to tie a tie, you've got to know how to put a shirt on, you wear smart shoes, and it's like, you don't always have to wear that.
There's no absolute answer for this one, is there? There's no absolutes here. But it's
never is
a bloody good discussion. Mate,
don't know, we got onto the schools and talking, but we're
do you
there.
know what? We're half an hour in.
We're there. We're just
and we
talking
haven't
about schools
touched these bad boys yet, but
let's go.
I've really enjoyed that chat.
Yeah,
Thank
there we
you.
go. No, you're right.
Enlightening.
Had no idea where we were going with it. But we're there.
We went somewhere. Right, sussed. Do you know what? I'm really going to just choose one at random.
Cool.
So I'm going to pose you a question.
Yep.
It's about your emotional intelligence.
Yep.
And you've got 3. You've got an A, B, or C to pick from.
Okay.
Okay. So I trust myself most to, and that you're picking for yourself. So I trust myself most to A, come up with solutions to problems. B, not get myself into tricky situations. C, prepare for potential problems.
Oh, great questions. What was point 1 again?
So A is come up with solutions to problems. Being a problem solver, not getting myself into tricky situations. So for me, that sounds like you sort of shying away from things that are hard, which you can't picture.
I don't think it's that. I think it's also you're making smart, calculated decisions. That's how I read that. So it's like, I'm always prepared. So I'm not making this. Yeah. So tricky situation. So for example, would I come here if, again, you gave me all the information about what to do today. So I wouldn't have come here today if you hadn't given me a brief on what to do with the kids later, because that for me is a tricky situation.
Yeah. Oh,
can
mate, we can get chatting. Let me say the last one again then. So that's prepare for potential problems. That's more prepare for preparing for potential problems. Because, I semi like that as well, though. Do you know when I've gone to a school and I prepared for an hour and they're like, no, we had you at 2 hours today for this session. You're like, what? I mean, I've only had that happen twice, actually, and it was their mistake. I got the email out. I was like, duh. Like, oh, no, we buggered up. Well, you got 2 hours. Yeah. But that on-the-spot thinking, something often, in my lived experience, that's where the magic or the beauties come from. Do you know, because you've been on your feet and you're like, right, I've really got to be creative here. And in that creative carnage and creative chaos, really beautiful things have happened because it's quite authentic. You can't really be in your head or your structure too far. You just got to throw it at them.
And that's what I do with the second group of kids. That's what we went on that conversation about uniforms and stuff.
Yeah.
That second group, I normally say an hour and a half. I literally only have maybe 10 slides. That is completely off the cuff, going back and forth. So there's a little bit of structure, but we just go back and forth. And there's a part of the conversation where I say to them, do you want to go this way or do you want to go that way? And then I lead with that. But for me, I have to have some sort of structure. And that's why, again, let's say that happened to me. I would still use my hour-long assembly. I would just go into more detail because I know it so well. I've got such an arsenal of stuff. I'll just elaborate on each more point, if that makes sense, and just kind of go into it and use personal stories. But for you love that. You've got that creative carnage, I call it. Like you literally could be put in any situation and you could talk to anyone in any situation, like a chameleon. Like you've got that, and what you present and what you do in schools is all about creativity. And no one knows what you're really going to talk about. Like only you really know that. You can switch it up. Whereas when I go in, I've got a very clear objective. So every school I go into, every organisation I go into, it's you're coming in, these are the objectives, this is the outcome. So I then couldn't necessarily wing it like that. I'd have to wing it in another way and just elaborate and use my knowledge to bring it into the forefront. Does that make sense?
I'll jump in with that because I think before, when I was getting into it, I was really structured. And it was only till I saw a session here from a guy, Polar Bear, who's one of the facilitators, but it's just magic. He puts a big sheet of paper out and then says, right, guys, we're going to create a school or we're going to create a town. What's it called? And then he's throwing ideas out and it's all just unfolding on this piece of paper. And then we start doing character work. And he genuinely didn't prep anything for that because he picked stuff out of the room. He could pick stuff, just whatever they were saying in the moment. He's like, right, we'll put that down here and stuff like that. And that really triggered something in me and inspired me to be a bit more outside of my structure. And I would say I just care too. Like I really want great sessions. But when I was so adamant or vehement on this is how we're going to do it today, I missed beautiful moments before because I didn't allow myself to jump into that unknown. And most of it's balance for me. But having that element of, do you know what, we're just going to see where this takes us. It might not go where you're guessing it to go or anything like that, but let's allow it to go. It's made my teaching a lot better.
That's your creative background. Like everything that you do is creative, like your music, your poetry, like you are a creative person. I'm not that creative.
You bloody are.
So, but I am, based on my parameters and my structures, if that makes sense. So my structures aren't so, it's like anything to morning routines. I have flexibility in what I'm doing. So when I go and work with these 15 to 20 naughty kids, not naughty kids, because they're not naughty, misunderstood. Nice. I have a structure, but I'm so flexible with it because I don't know what these kids are like. I don't know. No two classrooms, these 15 to 20 kids are the same. And one of them will say something, and I'll spend 15 to 20 minutes talking about money on the board or how to start a business on the board. It's got nothing to do with what I was talking about, but it's relevant to that group. And again,
the knowledge is there.
Exactly. And that's the thing for me. It's like that's what I do now. But when I go into the whole school assemblies, I've got to keep these 250, 300 kids zoned in on what I'm talking about. I can't afford to just go off tangent, because if I go off tangent, I lose the point of what they're trying to get out of it. Does that make sense? So there has to be, there's a time and a place for it. And I kind of freestyle.
Particularly where you're really wanting to take some information away with them.
But then that's why I get in the radio and the podcast. Like right now, I've got enough knowledge in the bank where I had no idea we were doing this today. You're throwing stuff out. I have that flexibility and freedom to do that. If I was on a panel on a stage, for example, and basically someone said, right, you're just going to go up there and talk for an hour.
It's like Boris Johnson.
But people throwing questions or having stuff to go off, I'll happily do that. So it's, for me, I've got to have some sort of structure. So for that, I think, I can't remember which one it was, but I think I prepare. I think I'm more of a prepared person.
So I trust myself most to be prepared for potential problems.
Yeah, I think, So
I've seen you come up with some good solutions.
I'm more of a solutions-based person. So, but for me, I'm always looking at how can I make sure there's no problems. There's always going to be problems, and I back myself to deal with the problems. But the more organised and planned I am, like for example, I'll always leave. Let's say it takes me an hour to get here. Sorry, it takes me 45 minutes to get here. I left an hour. Now again, let's say for example, a problem occurs on the way down here. I'll deal with it in that moment. I'm really good at coming up with solutions, but I'm more of the person being proactive. I'd rather be proactive so there isn't problems. If that makes sense.
I hear you. Yeah. So, A is to come up with solutions. B is to not get myself in tricky situations. I'm still uncertain if that's about not wanting to throw yourself into danger, and that's something I've had to learn recently, just to throw myself in, and then prepare for potential problems. I think I trust myself most to come up with solutions.
If you force me, I would say A as well for me as well.
Okay.
I'll go with that. Yeah, if you force me, it could be all three of them. Yeah,
it's a good question.
Interesting one. That's a very good question. I like that.
Right, you ready for this?
Yep.
Which am I most concerned about? Human cloning, a robotic police force, national identity cards.
Interesting. probably the robot police one. But again, I think that ties into artificial intelligence, so I'm going to go with artificial intelligence, which is the robot one.
I mean, have you not seen that video online with the dogs that are robot dogs and they just keep going forward?
Yeah, I think for me,
I don't like it, man.
For me, like I said, AI is fantastic. Like, I think it's absolutely brilliant, but the problem is it's so unregulated. And if you actually look at what's been said, there's a guy that used to work for Google, who basically was one of the founders of AI. He basically talks about now how AI right now has a higher IQ than most humans. And every time a new version comes out, it's like 100 or 300 times smarter than the one before.
Wow.
So the next version that comes out will be smarter than any human. He talks about the IQ of ChatGPT, I think, whatever it is 130 or whatever. I think Einstein's only 160, something like that. Whatever. But basically saying what makes humans the superior species over everyone else, our intelligence. We've now created something that's more intelligent than us. So we are now not the superior species. And again, to David's point, he says, "Oh, it's David's got a view on artificial intelligence."
David's who we do the radio with.
The basis is like, it's not free. It's free. It's completely free thinking. The way that it's designed, it's completely free thinking. It's not before. It wasn't free thinking. It had a certain parameter, but now the way that it's set up, if you listen to some stuff on it, it's quite scary. It's completely free thinking. It teaches itself. It learns. It can teach other things to do. So it's crazy. So I've got no problem with it.
What's your thought going forward? Where do you imagine this?
There needs to be regulations around it.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, everything's done with good intentions.
Do you focus much of your time and energy into these conversations? Do you listen to them on podcasts? Are you trying to stay aware to it, or do you feel ignorance is bliss to some degree?
No, I'm the opposite of ignorance.
Really?
My podcasts are basically a lot of this stuff. I like to become aware of what's going on with surroundings when it comes to just what I like to know what's going on, so I'm not ignorant to certain things, like whatever happened a couple of years ago. Again, very aware of what was going on. I was listening to both sides of the argument. I like to hear both sides, because for me, if one side's shouting super loud, I'm like, okay, well, what's the other side saying? Because there's always people do not understand basic concepts of life. There's one side of the story, there's the other side of the story, and there's a truth. And the truth is normally somewhere in the middle, slightly leaning to one side. Yeah. Apart from very special situations where it is very leaning on one side. For example, a murderer. A murderer's got a thing of that situation. The other person's got it. Like, yes, the murderous thing may, but it's vastly, the truth is vastly against them. But most of the time, it's somewhere in the middle, slightly leaning. So if one thing is so adamant that this is right, I'm like, well, what's the opposite to this? And then just go do your research, and then you can kind of come with your own conclusions. It's called critical thinking. Like, people lose the ability to critically think. And critical thinking is looking at all the information out there and making your own decisions on it, rather than just, this is what the news has said, this is what my friends have said. It's like, okay, well, where do they get their information from? So I don't spend all my time looking at it. My main stuff is learning on the mindset. However, I don't like to be ignorant in situations. So, for example, when people have conversations about AI, I understand the dangers of AI. Am I worried about it? Not particularly, but I understand there is potential dangers, which most people seem completely ignorant to. And if you're ignorant to these situations, you blindly walk into it. When you blindly walk into it, it's very easy for the door to get shut behind you. You're locked in, you can't get out. Yeah. And that's the thing for me. It's like, we've got to kind of be aware, where's the world going? Because it's not the same. Even just from the lockdowns, the world is not the same. It's not going back to where it was. It's moving in a certain direction. If you're not aware and you're trying to stay the same, either personally or business-wise, you're going to get left behind.
With the critical thinking, how do you not stay shackled to it, though, where you're constantly down paths of that information and trying to go with it? Do you have a bit of regulations with the way that you learn and that you find that information?
So like I said, I listen to a different podcast, and then if something really tickles my fancy, I'll do my own research into it. Yeah. And then once I've kind of come to my own conclusion, I kind of leave it there. Because I said the truth is somewhere in the middle.
And then stay open.
Yeah,
and then
exactly. Because
listen,
I don't care that much that I'm going to invest days on it.
Because I do know people that are shackled to...
Listen, I'm very open to being wrong, and I'd like to be wrong, because guess what? I've learned something. But I just don't like to be ignorant to. I've heard this one thing, it's got to be fact. Because it's happened to me, it's probably happened to you, where someone says something about me, and it's like, people then believe that. And I'm like, okay, well, you've just believed this one thing. Well, where's the truth? Like, you've heard this one thing, why not ask me or ask other people, get another side of the story, and then actually come to the conclusion of your own? Does that make sense? Because anyone in any situation in life, just think about it, anyone can be painted in a bad light. Yeah. No one's perfect. No one. So let's say that one day where you've woken up on the wrong side of the bed, you've had an argument with your partner, your kid's been crazy, and then you've gone to Starbucks or something, or Costa, and they've messed your coffee up, and you get a bit aggressive with the barista. And the person behind you has never met you before, and they think, what a dick. They then go to the meeting, and guess what? You're the person that's there. And I'm thinking, I don't want to buy anything. This guy's an absolute dick. You're not a dick. You've had a really bad day. There's a particular incident that's happened, and you kind of lost it a bit. And maybe afterwards you went back and apologised to the barista. But no one sees that. They just see that little thing, and they hold you to that. It's like, people in glass houses shouldn't throw stones. People are very quick to judge the people when actually no one's perfect. We're all flawed humans. So when we're very quick to gossip and judge other people, when it's like, listen, you've heard one thing, you don't actually know that person. Do you know what I mean? 'Cause if you knew that person, you'd know, yeah, they do that sometimes, but actually they do this as well, and the truth about them is somewhere in the middle, as I just said, slightly on one side or the other. Does that make sense?
I think it's a good way of thinking.
Yeah, I don't get shackled by it. Like I said, it's for me, unless something major happens, like for you, unless you do something completely out there, there's nothing you could do to change my opinion of you. Because I know you well enough.
Getting my cameras.
but I think I know you well enough. To my opinion of you, I know who you are.
Yeah.
I think I'd like to know you. But if you do something completely stupid, and I'm like, mate, well,
that'd be the only
unforgivable.
thing
But apart from that, it's like, okay, cool, but all this other stuff. It's like the way that I see it is like you've got a bank of stuff deposits. You put so many positive deposits in there that if you do something negatives, it kind of balances out. I kind of know where my balance is with you.
Yeah.
Unless you do something that goes and literally robs the bank.
Where's the baseline? Is it pretty high?
Okay.
Yeah.
Slightly in the black.
I'm always in the blue minus me. The national identity cards.
Yeah.
What's that? Is that the social economic scores that we're getting?
I think so. I think it's where you got an identity card to do basically anything, and
that's quite worrying, isn't it? I've heard they've deployed that in China now, quite heavy, so they can literally look at stuff that you've done on Twitter or you've said when you were 15 even.
Yeah, but they can do that now anyway.
Really? But people aren't being allowed to travel. Some people aren't allowed to go into certain shops because of this score system.
Yeah, but that's again, without going into too much detail about it, that's kind of where we're kind of moving to. With a lot of stuff, like again, electric cars.
How's your feeling towards it? Is that not worse than AI?
Yeah, it is. It's not, but that's more of a
more immediate.
Well, you say that, like, what's I was saying, within 5 years, AI, it could be something. It's like it's basically happening now. We're just not aware of it. Like it's. You've got to think about something. You've got to think about something that constantly, every single day, can get smarter. Every single day, and anytime it makes a mistake, it teaches itself and other things not to make a mistake. So it gets smarter.
They had it against Go, didn't they? Yeah. Which is harder than chess. There's more possibilities, isn't it? Beat the best player in the world after
by doing something completely unexpected that no one ever expected it to do. So think about that. So again, we're logical. We can think, oh, that's the next move. But the AI won. The AI made a move that no one had ever seen, or wasn't even probably, but it made the move.
And that's the first machine.
This is my point with it. When you
was
look
the dumbest version.
But with this, when it comes to the social cards, I think there's again, without going down a rabbit of stuff.
We're on the old farm bus, man. You can say anything on here.
It's looking at the bigger picture of. With moving with electric cars, people don't understand about electric cars, and it's kind of very frustrating when you look at the big picture of it. I believe in the environment. I think there's stuff that should be done, but electric cars aren't the answer. If you look at the batteries, it's more damaging for the environment to go and mine these batteries that aren't recyclable.
Is it the same stuff that they use in our iPhones?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, the cobalt. Yeah, and then again, you've got to charge these things up with electricity. Where's electricity come from?
Yeah,
coal. And again, if you look at the stuff in the machines, it's got oil in it. It's got the machines inside got oil. So again, you've got all these things. But then also, guess what? This happened in Canada. There was a massive snowstorm and people were trapped in electric cars. What did they do? They added mileage on the cars.
Why?
So the people could get home because they were trapped.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So if they can add mileage, what can they do?
Take it away. I get
so if everyone's driving around electric cars, so you get to about social cards, bank cards, okay, cool, well, they can track where you're going in your car and they can shut it down any minute.
Wow.
So again, people look at the positive and negatives of it, and I'm just looking at it like, and if you look in America where they're pushing it, if you actually look at the statistics, if every American right now, the thing they're trying to do of getting a certain amount of Americans to have electric cars by whatever date it is, the American grid cannot handle it. It's impossible. And there's stuff where you can watch people in the Senate and stuff talking about it, and they're asking these people, like, how are you going to power this? And they've not got an answer. So it's kind of, for me, it's like all up in the air. And I know we're going down a thing with environment. I think the environment is a real serious issue. Yeah. But the way we're going about it isn't the right thing. It's not the right way. And again, when it comes to these cards, I don't think that we should be giving all our power away, because again, they're apparently talking about moving into fully like cryptocurrency based stuff, like having a governmental version of that. And again, it's very dangerous when people can just cut you out like that. They can do it now.
We want to decentralize.
Yeah, they can do it now, but it's harder for them to do it.
Yeah.
So for me, it's like, because no one should be able to tell you how to live your life. As long as you're living within the rules, it shouldn't be so subjective that someone in power can be like, I don't agree with this, shut you off. Do you know what I mean? It should be a case of we're allowed to live the life that we want to live as long as it's ethical, legal, not harming anyone. Just let us get on with it. But at the minute, they're trying to push us down a road where we've got to fit their narrative. I don't agree with that.
I'm just smiling that we've done an hour.
Really?
and I've only asked you 2 questions. I'm really enjoying this. Like, genuinely. These are
because these are questions that you never really ask me. We don't really have these conversations because it's not the style of my podcast, but it's really good.
That's why I'm enjoying it, because I forget how you think, and I love that you do have quite a lot of knowledge. So I can picture...
This thing for me with stuff like this, people...
I know what you're up to in the days.
But people are listening to me, hearing stuff like this, I don't tend to talk about it much because people don't pay for my opinions.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, if people ask my opinion, I'll happily give it, and I'm very free talking about it. But people don't pay for my opinions; they pay for me to give them information that's going to actually help them.
And the majority of the platforms you're on, we're not really going to get that on the BBC, are we? Nope. Where you're at,
and or my podcast isn't geared towards that at all.
That's it.
So this is interesting,
mate. Screw once every 3 months. I want you every other week.
Mate, I'm enjoying this. So let's go again.
Okay, but. Between those two,
I would say still the robot
because
one.
The human clone, I'm not really bothered about human cloning.
It's been going on for a while, hasn't it? When it comes to the test tube baby, is that kind of what it is?
I would the cloning idea surely replicate another me, and that would be bad because then it could do some damage and whatever, and we'd have to work out that. But
again, so then here's the thing with AI, deep fakes and all that stuff. They're cloning people anyway. So that kind of so again, like that for me is more of a really genuine thing. Really bad because this is the thing now.
Get really bad, really good.
Yeah. Because
in terms of how on the nose it is, I watched Rogan because obviously he's got about 2,000 podcasts more now. So there's so much information that AI can sift through. And he was selling loads of products that he's never spoken about before.
Yep.
And it's slightly... Do you know when it has another rebirth, this AI, it'll be the exact same person.
Yep.
But at the minute, it's just a little bit of... Like, there's moments that you can go, oh, that's a robot.
Yep.
Not far.
100%, but again, so that's that. Then when it improves itself. Yeah. And the amount it improves, it doesn't improve itself a little bit. And this is the scary thing that people don't seem to realise. Yeah. And it's all well and good when it's... Again, if it's regulated... The problem is it's not regulated.
No.
And this is what people don't understand. Robots can do everything.
Hard to regulate a moving train now, isn't it?
Yeah. But again, but at the minute, we still have jobs.
Yeah.
There's robots right now that can paint and decorate a house.
Fucking hell.
They're talking about now Amazon doing these delivery drones. At what point are we going to look and be like, we are all going to lose our jobs? Because at what point do we even need podcasts? Do we need Joe Rogan? At what point do we actually need musicians?
I think they're the one thing that will really stay.
No, we don't know. Because if you've got a computer that can think for itself, have emotions, which again they're talking about they're doing now. There's interviews where someone's talking to it, and basically the robot's saying, "I have emotions." Because again, what's emotions? Energy and emotions is energy. It's energy. So emotions are energy. All emotions is our body in a vibrational state, energy state, and what we've done is, I'm in this vibrational state. That means I'm feeling this emotion. That's all it is. It's just a word to describe the emotional state we're in, the energy state we're in. So if you've then got robots which are electric, they can then be in an emotional state if they're thinking a certain way in hardwires. Because that's all we are. We're just electricity. So you're looking at this, and again, you've then got a robot that can have 2 robots that can talk to each other about a subject like this right now, and the robot has got access to every single bit of information about AI, and then you've set the other one up to be argumentative, and cause you can then have a conversation. Or music. You literally have robots now creating music. So at what point have you heard that rapper that basically released a song and it was all AI? There was a rapper that released a song and it got into charts in America and it was all AI.
That's why
the person was all computer generated. The artist, the words were all computer. Everything was computer generated.
And it got to number 1.
No, it was in the charts in America.
It was in the charts.
Yeah, but I think people knew it was AI, so they didn't want. But they didn't know beforehand.
But okay, that's interesting. What is that thing that humans are pushing to the side when they know it's AI? Is it because they want that human experience? They want that. I know that we're saying they can grow emotion, but what will humans cling on to if AI is creating music, AI is creating podcasts and stuff? Because for me, I know what it is. I love the human condition. I love the flaws. You know, when we slip our words or we're not sure what to say in that moment and we say something daft and we're like, go red or have to go back on something. I feel AI is going to just become so beautiful, so perfect, so unflawed that's what it's going to lose out on. And
I think it's a personal connection. I think it's the personal connection.
Yeah.
There's, no matter how
flawless
smart,
is what unflawed.
Yeah, no matter
See,
how,
I did it then.
But no matter how perfect AI is, it's never going to be another human.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. It's like, so the human connection is what we're going to crave for and hold on to.
Yeah,
we
that's
want that
why
authenticity.
That's the podcast thing. I think that's why they'll prevail, and same with the music and stuff. It'll always prevail. But Post Malone didn't believe so. He was really scared by it.
Yeah.
Listened to his latest podcast, and he's like, "Man, I listened to some of my tracks recently, and they've literally cloned it. They've cloned his music." So,
and this thing, they've got access. This is what you think. They've got access to every single song, lyric, beat, thing that's been released, not released, and they can look at all. Think about this: all the songs that have gone number one. They can look at the beat. They can find the pattern. The cadence, all this sort of stuff, and then create a song that basically will hit our souls. And this is the thing. And again, they can then take, let's say, Frank Sinatra, and then get him singing it.
Yeah.
This is the thing. They can create all the perfect voice that humans love to listen to. So it's a mixture of Beyonce and Miley Cyrus. It's the perfect thing. They then create this unique voice, and this way it gets, again, it goes down a bit of a rabbit hole. But for me, it's not as far away as we think.
No.
And I think it's just a case of looking at it and being
that's
like,
the nuance there, because to see Frank Sinatra, to be able to relive those days or see people that are deceased, that's pretty epic,
cool. Yeah,
that's a cool thing.
Yeah, I agree.
But then to be losing people's jobs and taking away those sides of things, that's where it's
because it's about having purpose as a human being. If you take away our jobs and what are we going to do? Just exist? Well, that happened during COVID, and look at the state of mental health. People getting paid to stay at home doing nothing. Yeah, they went nuts. People have got to feel like they've got a purpose, a reason for waking up. Even if they don't like their job, they've got a purpose. They're doing something. They're not just sat there existing. So if you then take that away, what have we got left?
The best way to be looking at it is going to take those menial tasks that we don't really want and be able to give people the sense where they can focus on what they really want to be doing, which I don't think many people have balanced that out yet. They're doing stuff they don't want to be doing every morning, when they've got this thing that they call a hobby that they can't put any time or attention to. So hopefully, if we look at it in the right way or a better way, AI is going to give that opportunity for people.
And that's it. There's so many positives to it.
Yeah.
There's so many positives, but because it's unregulated, this is my point, is that unregulation that I find is a bit of an issue.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
But that sounds like that's the one you fear the most.
I fear that. Yeah, there we go.
Okay.
Good questions.
Right. Whom would I have the most sympathy for? The person whose heavy bag splits. B, the person who doesn't realise their shirt is tucked into their underwear. Or C, the person who falls asleep on the train and misses their stop. Oh, I've done that before. So the person with the bag splits, person who doesn't realise their shirt's tucked into their underwear, or the person who falls asleep on the train.
This is great. We've all been there. We've all been all of them. We've all been there. Most sympathy for.
I mean, the bag's got to be pretty heavy. That means there's a lot in it, so that's a lot on the floor.
I don't necessarily say I've got that much sympathy for that person, because if you're putting the bags that full, you're kind of asking for trouble.
Yeah,
you kind of know. It's like, listen, that's going, like, be careful. And I get it. Maybe they've only got one, whatever.
You've overestimated yourself in the bag.
I then look at, again, without context, you then got the person that's falling asleep. So if they're a busy person that's working long hours to try and provide for their family, and they're just trying to get 5 to 10 minutes just shut eye before they go home again, there's like, then I feel sorry for them. Because it's like they've missed a stop, rather than just being lazy. It's like,
mate, that
hits, that hits. And then when it comes to the person that's took their stuff into underwear, so again, you've got someone that's really like again, this is where my head goes with this. I've realised recently I'm quite empathetic.
Nice.
So with this, then when it comes to that person, it's like, let's say they're quite self-conscious. So and again, you telling that person that's happened, imagine like the shame and embarrassment they're going to hold. However, like that's something you kind of want to know, especially if it's a woman, for example, and your underwear's on show. There's all this stuff. Guys, I don't think it's necessarily that big a deal, because you've got guys that walk around with their trousers hanging.
Now.
And again, I know to a sense some women do as well, but I feel like for a woman that's quite a big thing. And again, it can be really, what's the word?
But then that comes to that is ignorance bliss.
I agreed. So. But again, at some point they're going to realise, and it's again, because then if you tell that person, then you're kind of highlighting to them. So for me, I'm going to assume that the person that's fallen asleep and missed is because they're hardworking, they're trying to provide, and they're trying to get a bit of shut eye. And I'm picturing someone on the London Underground, and they're just trying to get a quick 5 to 10 minutes before they go on to their second jobs. I'm going to say them.
Yeah, because I mean that B with the underwear, if you can handle it in a good manner, you could turn it into a little bit of a joke or make it about you, be self-deprecating to a slight
Who
way.
really cares? If you don't know
Yeah.
people, just walk around in public.
Yeah.
So what? Like, you're not going to see these people again, and it's like, yeah, cool.
Yeah.
It's
Oh,
a bit
mate, I
silly.
thought I was having a bad
Yeah.
day. My sock was
Yeah.
tucked in. You got your underpants tucked here.
We've all seen it. It's like, oh, but actually, that person's false seat, that then affects them because how they're going to get back. Maybe they don't have the money for the train ticket or whatever it is. It's like, whatever it is, it could
There's
be
a
the
bit
last
more depth
train.
in that
Yeah,
one.
so I'll say that one. That's my one.
What was the bottom one as well?
The train one?
The train one was the bottom one, but what was the first?
That was the bag splitting.
Oh, here it is, yeah.
Bag splitting. So
The
bag splitting, underwear or train.
Bag splitting, yeah, I'm not bothered about that.
Yeah,
It's all stuff, it can get a new bag quite quickly.
Yeah.
It can get 2 new bags and evenly distribute it.
Yeah,
So
agreed.
how you should have done your melon.
Yeah, agreed.
The underwear, I mean, look at me, man.
There you go.
Really don't care about that. I'd turn it into a bit of a joke for them and make them feel better about it. Yeah, mate, we've joined forces on that one.
Yeah.
I didn't say the other one. I was also AI.
Yeah,
I'm with you.
Yeah.
Okay, ready for this one?
Yep.
Which is my everyday lazy struggle?
Okay.
I don't think you've got this in you, man. A, having a shower takes too long. B, someone else can answer the doorbell. C, why is the fridge so far away?
None of them. Can we go another question?
Katie,
that's completely relevant to me.
Katie is screaming.
None of them are a struggle to me. Like getting in the shower, I never think the shower takes too long. I will happily go and answer the door, and the fridge is never too far away because I'm not lazy. So none of them apply to me.
Katie, she's going to be looking at this like, why do I have to keep going and get them cans of Coke then? Like?
No. Honestly, well, you see me like I was off you drinking stuff, so none of them apply to me.
Okay, this one.
Yeah, we go.
I like that. Which do I think is most true? A, it's not up to others to make you happy. B, you shouldn't rely on friends for attention. And C, you shouldn't be afraid of teachers/bosses.
Oh, I love these because the thing I like about this, and they've done very well with these people because
Yeah.
all the answers can be correct. The first one for me, 100%.
I agree. Oh, yeah, this is a good chat.
Yeah. Remind me again what it says.
So, yeah, is most true.
Yeah.
It's not up to others to make you happy.
Yep. Because no one else can make you happy.
And you shouldn't rely on friends for attention. Yeah. I agree with that. But we are social beings, aren't we? Mm-hmm. And if we feel too detached from others, I do find it tricky.
But it's the word reliance. That's the thing for me. Relying on others.
But it's not up to others to make. Yeah, it's not up to them to make you happy.
So again, happiness is a feeling, and again, if we create happiness within ourselves. So again, happiness is an emotion. You can't make me feel anything. There's nothing you can say or do that makes me feel a certain way.
No.
Even if you know my deepest insecurities and you say them to me, they're just words.
Yeah.
I've then internalized them. I've then made myself feeling something based off those words.
Thing.
Exactly.
The reason I'm trying to throw that at you is because there's something.
But other than that, it's like you're saying,
me.
like, oh, you've made me feel sad, or you made me feel this. No, you haven't made me feel anything.
No.
You've said stuff. I've then taken that word. I've made it mean something to me in a certain way, and then I've then made myself feel a certain way based on what you've said. So it's the same with happiness. Like happiness is an internal feeling. If you realise that happiness is an internal feeling, and the precursor to happiness is gratitude, and you realise that nothing external from yourself, nothing, not a single thing external from yourself can bring you long-term happiness. Because again, getting a new car makes you happy, getting a new house makes you happy, getting a dog makes you happy, but it's all short-term. Long-term sustainable happiness can only come from yourself because that's it. It's an internal feeling. It's a feeling. You're in control of your feelings. Yeah. You have a choice whether someone saying the most horrific stuff to you ever affects you or doesn't. Now, again, that's a skill. I'm not saying it's easy, but it's like that's the place we've got to get to where you're making a choice every day. Right, am I going to choose to be happy today? And again, you could be in the worst situation, but look at the Viktor Frankl, the guy from Auschwitz that wrote the book, Man's Search for Meaning. Literally in the worst possible situations ever in the world, guess what? He was content. He was content. Why was he content? Because he was grateful. He showed gratitude. The biggest thing to talk about is gratitude. He was grateful, and again, he saw, he always believed there was better things to come. He had hope. And again, that's an internal thing.
Was it not those around him then that give him hope though?
I think I think most of them gave up. He basically, the people that didn't survive were the ones that had no hope.
So he basically finding his hope.
I've not read the book actually, if I'm honest with you, but I've seen so many people talk about it. That's basically the premise of it. Yeah. But just realizing that things do get better. But for me anyway, for me, gratitude is a precursor to happiness, and we want to be happy. Yet we're not grateful for what we've got right now. And again, when I went to South Africa, so I've been to South Africa 3 times. been to the worst townships in South Africa, and the kids have got nothing, and they're so happy. And why are they happy? Because they're grateful for what they've got. They're not searching for more.
Mate, can't we do a podcast in South Africa together?
Oh, I wish I had the contacts there now.
I want to go back there.
It's really, really good. It's so good.
I completely agree with you.
Yeah.
When I travelled, that was what I found, was they'd got that internal happiness that I'd never seen back here. And it was from everything outside of materials and all the things that we really hunt for. And it was all in that, the really wholesome aspects of the nature.
So they're grateful.
Yeah.
And again, it's like what Nathan says. Our friend Nathan says, people do emotions. We do emotions. So we do happiness. Okay, that means that we are doing it. So it means we then not doing it. So, okay, cool. We then have a choice. And this is my whole thing that I talk with clients about, and the whole premise of the podcast and everything I do is people have a choice. They're just not taught they have a choice. And they just go around being so reactive to life rather than being actually responding to life in a way that's meaningful to them.
And I suppose within this question, it's why a lot of relationships don't work, is because somebody's feeling dissatisfied in their life and they're waiting for somebody to come and fix it.
Yeah.
And that's why they get together, they live this blissful state for a year or so, and then they realise they don't have that much in common, or
they're just codependent. Imagine like me and you are a couple, a gay couple.
Hello.
And I'm putting you've got to make me happy.
Yeah.
How much pressure is that put on you?
And
you then can't have a bad day.
Yeah.
And if I'm miserable, it's your fault I'm miserable.
Yeah.
So no.
And the same person's who's been waiting for the saviour then sees when they're normalised or they're having their bad days and they're like, oh no, I thought you were the one and now you've had this bad day because you're human.
Yeah, and that's it for me. It's like you can't, and this is what we do. We're constantly looking for people to make us happy. And like I said, there's also people can't make us happy. Like I said, I love going home to Katie, again, Theo, also and again, I love seeing you. Like, do you make me happy when having a good chat? Absolutely. But you're not making me happy. We are making ourselves happy because we're expressing ourselves. And again, it comes down to communication. It's a whole rabbit hole you can go down with that. What's
B trying to sort of suggest? You shouldn't rely on friends for attention. So people crave attention. We shouldn't rely on friends for that.
It's almost like the validation. I read that as like for friends for validation. Like it's like you need them. Again, like I said, we're social beings, and again we want that connection with friends. But again, it's that reliance for me. The word reliance there. It's relying on them.
Yes,
and that's the difference. Like it's cool to have it, and everyone likes it. But it's the relying. Meaning, if you don't have that on one day, that you're going to somehow go off the rails. That for me, that reliance. I don't like that word.
We didn't discuss C. So you shouldn't be afraid of your teachers/bosses. I'd agree with that.
Yeah.
I mean, they're all true statements, aren't they?
Yeah.
What's that? What that's saying? Authority. You shouldn't be fearful of it. You should be, if you're going to be in your perfect, optimal state, be able to go forward and discuss with that.
Yep.
This is how I'm feeling. You'll probably get a better outcome than seeing them as in the hierarchy way above you.
Yeah. And you basically put people on a pedestal, I think, there.
Yeah.
So again, teachers, whatever it is, like, again, obviously teachers assume that the kids, it's almost like the authority, and again, when it comes to bosses, again, it's the authority, but actually realising that teachers are there to teach you something, whether you agree with it or not, that's a different conversation. They're there to teach you something, and even if they're teaching you something and you don't agree, guess what? You've still learned something.
Yeah.
You've learned that you don't agree with that way of thinking. And same with your bosses as well. But again, it's when it comes to a good boss and a bad boss. A good boss, their job is to raise you up, to make you smarter, to help you, educate you, etc., etc. That's a good boss. I think when it comes to people being fearful of their bosses, it's that boss where you basically whatever you do is never good enough. They're shouting at you. But that, nowadays, if you look at the culture of businesses, not many bosses are like that because they just get blasted. That's not, people want to be valued. So for me, it's like if you've got a very genuine boss.
Which is a good thing in our culture, actually, that's changed.
Absolutely,
so
and I completely agree.
Yeah.
So you shouldn't be afraid of your boss. Like again, the boss should be a person that again you respect, but again being fearful. You should never run anything on fear. No. You shouldn't have that fear-based thing. It's not a good way to lead.
Yeah, mate.
Based with love,
dude. We've got to go. We've got to pack down because we've got to get ready for tonight.
Yep.
Change the world in these kids' worlds. But have you enjoyed that?
Mate, it was really interesting. Yeah, like I said, it went off all on tangents, and again, talking about topics I don't normally discuss. So yeah, very interesting.
It's sussed, everybody. If you want to do that game with your family and have a few icebreaker questions that lead to hour-long podcasts, hour and a bit long podcasts, then yeah, sus. Thank you guys, and appreciate the help and donations.
Yeah, awesome.
Dude, really enjoyed this. Can you let everybody know on this camera where they can find all your stuff, your podcast, what the Prime Life Project's up to?
Yep, so on Instagram, it's the Prime Life Project. It's the easiest way of getting hold of me. Then also got the podcast as well, so on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. Episodes are released on Tuesday and Thursday, so there's 2 episodes a week. And like I said, if you've taken any value from today's episode, or you want to connect with me, or want to argue with me about one of my points, please feel free to drop me a message on Instagram, and I'll happily respond back to you.
And in that podcast, sometimes you'll hear my little ha 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 in the background because it is.
Oh, yeah, Mikey laughing. Yeah, that's it. My podcast again slightly different, isn't it? So again,
a lot of this, I go, good point.
It's again, my podcast again is just interviewing people that've gone through some stuff to basically help you. So again, basically the whole mission of the podcast is to help people basically get out of the mental prison that they find themselves in. So again, if you're struggling a little bit, looking for a bit of guidance at all, then the Promenade Project podcast on all major platforms.
Your latest episode, 2 episodes are fire.
Yeah,
like
with Nathan Arnold, who again, your listeners will be familiar with Nathan.
Yeah.
Very, very good podcast episode. So yeah, go check that out.
And what was the lady's name?
Tara. Cara Payton.
What was her thing? Authenticity and...
mate,
right on the spot.
Yeah, authenticity and I can't remember.
Oh, mate, Can we find it after that? And put it in.
Yeah. But again, she's absolutely fantastic. So
it was an incredible episode. I'll do my bit. Yep. Guys, you've been a part of the Old Farm Bus, Back of the Bus Sessions podcast. I'll leave you on this. Always do, always will. Just be nice to one another. You're a beautiful set of buggers. I don't think AI would come up with that. See you later.